Hey everyone, welcome to the From the Shadows podcast. I'm your host, Shane Grove. And before we get started with this episode, I want to give everybody another update on Jason, the super producer. He's still in the hospital as of right now. He's getting a little bit better, but we got a ton of messages and emails about Jason. Some of our listeners wanting me to send messages to him. So I've sent him some stuff through his wife so he could know that everybody's out there praying for him and thinking about him. And he appreciates it. And, he's not out of the woods by any stretch of the imagination, but he does want to get back on the air. So we just want to get him healthy and feeling good again. So hopefully those two things converge soon, him getting healthy and him coming back and hanging out. So everybody just keep saying a prayer for Jason and keep him in your thoughts. I know he really appreciates it. So before I bring our guest on, I just want to remind everybody that if you have an experience or a sighting or just something you want to talk to me about, you can find us on From the Shadows podcast on Facebook. You can find us at After the Shadows at our forum page on Facebook. You can find me as Shane Grove Author on Instagram or our From the Shadows podcast Instagram page, or the old-fashioned way, find us on our website, FromTheShadowsPodcast.com. Hit the contact button, send me an email. I promise I'll get back to you. I've been getting a lot of really cool emails about some experiences that people have been having. So, we're going to have some cool guests on here soon from some of the most recent things. And I just want to remind you that we do have a Patreon page if you want some extra content. And then our regular episodes do get up early and commercial free on Patreon too. So check that out if you want to get some extra midweek howls and paranormal content. It would be awesome if you want to become a Patreon. So tonight's guest is Glen. Now I said his last name right to begin with, and now I'm hoping I don't screw it up. It's Glen. It's Glen Bourassa. Did I get that right?
Bourassa, close.
Bourassa. Oh, jeez. Yeah. I knew.
You were just too nervous. Yeah.
Yeah, I was.
Awesome.
Yeah, I was really nervous. In Glen's official title, so we're not messing around, he is the Northeast Regional Director of the Pennsylvania Bigfoot Project, and he comes highly recommended from one of the podcast's good friends and former guest, Mary Fabian. So if Mary tells me this is a guy we need to talk to, then I know this is a guy we need to talk to. So Glen, let's get into it. Tell me and our listeners why you're somebody we need to talk to.
Awesome. Thank you, Shane. First, I'd like to say, best wishes to Jason and a speedy recovery, sending him good vibes and that. So
Thanks.
Get that out of the way, but
he will certainly appreciate that. He will appreciate
you bet.
that.
And hopefully he listens to the podcast. That's important.
Well, he's laying in the hospital, so he better. I don't know what else he's
doing. Right. So I've been investigating and been involved with Bigfoot since the mid-'70s. When I had my first experiences up in the White Mountains of Arizona, I had a couple of pretty intense ones. I've also had a few strong UFO sightings. I had the one I can tell you about. If you want me to go right into that, and then we'll go back into the Bigfoot things.
Yeah, let's hear about that, because like we kind of talked about before we went on air, what's going on right now, it's kind of like
came to the forefront a lot.
Yeah, unidentified flying object fever is going on, so.
Oh, yeah. All right. Well, let me explain this part. We were on vacation up in Lake Tahoe with my parents, and we had the three kids, my brother, my sister, and the three of us and my parents. We were visiting my grandparents that had a restaurant and a house right behind the restaurant. And this is in Lake Tahoe on the California side. Okay. So I was about 3 years old. My brother was 5 and my sister was 7. Okay. So, our age groups. That night, they put us all three to bed in the same bed. Okay. And that's, normal. So we're just giggling, talking, whatever. We're just about ready to doze off. And we hear this noise, really loud noise in the backyard. And it wasn't that loud, but it was a strange type noise, right? So we all jump up. The big window was right behind the bed. So a big picture window. And I'm the youngest. And I remember putting my hands like right about where my chin is. Okay. And I'm looking out the window, and my brother's next to me, and my sister's next to him. And we're looking out the window, and there's a spaceship about 35 feet out that's already landed in the backyard. And this is a disc type shape from what I remember. I remember some lights, but I don't remember any windows per se. But I do remember the tripod type legs, big cylinder type legs, like maybe twice the size of a gallon jug cylinders, long. And I think there was three, like a tripod. We didn't say anything. We looked at it and stared for about 15, 20 seconds, and then jumped back in the bed and covered our heads with the covers. And it was, being the youngest, I didn't know what to think, really. And the next day, I mean, we went to sleep right away. I don't remember anything. And then the next day, no one brought it up. We didn't ask our parents. They didn't mention anything to us. The next week, the next month, nothing, nothing was in me. It wasn't in my mind. And then, like I say, a year or so later, I asked my brother about it, and he goes, "Yeah, I remember, And, we started talking about it a little bit. My sister remembered it. And then in our 20s and 30s, I brought it up again, and, definitely still remembered it, the same exact sequence of what happened. Do you have any questions?
Well, yeah. Did you? So now you didn't mention it to your parents when you were young, but did you ever mention it as you got older?
Yeah, I did mention it to my mom because my dad had already, had a different wife and different things, but I didn't, think to mention it to him. But I just wonder that, being that loud, that my dad was in the Navy, and, he would have heard that, it's like, that's odd.
So your mom didn't remember anything happening?
No, she didn't remember anything of that.
Wow.
You know,
That's kind of, but you wonder, like, did she see something and just put it out of her mind, or I mean, I don't know. That's weird. That's just crazy. That's crazy. But
or
it is something.
were we all abducted and we don't know, or
Yeah. Yeah.
and mind erased, except when the certain part that we remembered before they thought we were back sleeping. Maybe they didn't see us jump up and see them, and then they just put the whole house to sleep, and then they came in. I don't know. That's something, maybe in a regression you could bring things up that you don't remember now or something, but that's another subject.
Yeah. No kid. Yeah. No kidding. That's kind of, yeah. That's, I don't know. That would shake me. I don't know how I could. Don't know that I'd be able to go back to sleep at that age. I don't.
Yeah.
That's
I mean,
kind of.
like I said, it just scared me. I didn't know. And I saw my brother and sister just jump back in the bed, and all three of us at the same time just covered up our heads with the blanket, with the sheet, and just, okay, just hide. That was kind of our philosophy. We don't see it. We don't hear it. We don't, I don't know why. That's what we did.
Well, if nothing else, you live to tell about it. You know what I'm saying? Um,
Yes.
and then here's what's crazy is with these things flying around, you wonder, like, if this is just going way out in left field, but you wonder if these, spaceships and aliens and extraterrestrial life comes and visits you once, even as a kid, like, you got to be on the list. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, okay, let's find these people that we checked out when they were, 5, 6, 7 years old, little kids, and see how they've progressed. Or let's see if if they did say they did abduct you, what if they put something in you that so they could track you, 50, 60 years later. You know what I'm saying? I mean, all that stuff runs through my head of they got to come. Yeah, because they're not abducting every single person, so you got to be special if they visit you
Right.
or they abduct you. I would think. Crap, I could be
Well, as you,
totally wrong about that. They might have abducted all of us.
yeah. Well, as you said that, I have a ganglion. The surgeon told me, on my left hand, right in like I don't know, between the thumb and index finger. It's been removed surgically twice and is grown back or is back again.
Really? Like,
Yeah.
what is their explanation for that?
They don't know. It's like I'd say like a big fat piece of rice, like medium grain rice. And it's hard, and I can feel it, it's right just below the skin. I've had other people showed them to them and felt it, and it doesn't hurt. It doesn't bother me, but it was kind of weird. So I, about 10, 15 years ago, I maybe even 20 years ago, I, had it removed. And he showed it to me. It didn't look like anything, but he says, well, we'll, do a biopsy or whatever, and it came back, it wasn't cancerous or anything. Okay. About a year later, it grew back. It was there. And then I had it surgically removed a second time and same kind of thing, but now it's back again.
So this time when you have it removed, are you going to have it sent to a different kind of laboratory to have checked out?
Yeah. I mean,
or like
maybe I'll have a Dr. Meldrum do it or something, or somebody do it a little different.
Or like keep it in a glass jar beside the bed, and then and make sure you keep an eye on it so that it doesn't end up back in your hand. I mean, that's crazy, and that they don't know what that is.
Or are they just coming and putting a new one in?
Oh boy,
I don't know.
They're like, we'll show that guy. Yeah, like we'll show that guy. We'll just keep putting it back in. What's he think he's doing? Oh man.
But why would they put it in the same spot though? Too. But
to mess with you. I mean, to totally mess with you. because wouldn't that be genius of them to play a psychological mind game with you by just saying, like, we could stick that in the bottom of his right foot and he'd never notice. Let's put it back in the same spot and see it, just mess with him oh gosh.
Well, I think God has a sense of humor, so why wouldn't aliens, or maybe it is God. Maybe it is just God playing with us, I don't know.
Yeah, it might be God going like, okay, you think this is aliens? Well, I'll just show you it's not. It's just, wow, that's crazy. That's crazy. And we still haven't even talked about Bigfoot. And that's
no.
That's too.
You haven't got to the good part yet.
Holy smokes. Okay.
So that was my first alien experience at a pretty young age, and I don't remember anything growing up till I was probably in my early, like 13, 14 years old, maybe. And this is up in Arizona. And I was just walking home one night and I see this big streak of blue light, just not a streak, but flying through the air, and this is up like in the stars region, and then it does a 90-degree angle turn and keeps going at the same speed, like at 600 million miles an hour, and then does a acute right turn and keeps flying off at the same speed, no change in speed.
So
I knew that,
impossible.
Definitely back in the 70s, there's nothing today that I know of that can do that, So I don't think back then anything but an alien technology could have done that.
Wow, that's yeah. Now, how did you feel seeing this stuff? Like, did you feel special or did you feel like cursed?
No. I mean, and like with Bigfoot, I've forgiven them for the scare and the terror that I went through. It's important to me that I stress that because I don't want them to carry that burden of the fear that I experienced, because I think they do. I think they feel more than we do.
Okay.
So
I mean, I can't argue with that totally either, because especially, with what anybody, and I don't entirely know what you feel that those creatures are, but like I could see, I think they're a little more spiritual than what some people might think. And I could see how they could carry something like that with them, as a spiritual entity. For sure.
Yeah.
So let's get into let's hear about your Bigfoot stuff then, because I'm sure if it's better than having a piece of alien technology embedded in the webbing of your hand, then
that's I'll have to send you a picture of that. You can post it on the
all right. Yeah.
Here's Glenn's hand. Yeah. All right. So, all right. This is in the mid 70s, I think 75, when I was about 15 years old. I was walking a friend of mine's girlfriend home from a birthday party, and this is pretty late at night. So I'm walking her home, and there's nobody on the road. We went cut through the high school, and then we're going down this one particular road. And we passed this one house, and the dogs at that house, were pretty good sized dogs. And they've came up and kind of attacked us before up by the fence, but didn't bother us. The dogs weren't out that night. So I kept going, dropped her off. We walked in. She went in through her window. And this is my friend's girlfriend, not mine, but that's what you do late at night for kids. So I'm walking back home, and I'm coming down that same area in that same street, and those dogs started raising hell. I mean, they're just barking up a storm, vicious, something's going on. So I'm like, oh, great. So I start crossing the street. I get about halfway across the street and halfway past the house, and the dogs just went silent. Nothing. You couldn't hear nothing. And I kept walking, and I'm like, this is weird. I get past the house, about maybe 25 feet past the house, and this roar started up in these trees to my left. And Shane, this is the loudest thing I've ever heard in my life other than a concert. The sound of this roar was just pissed off, and it just like 20, 25 seconds, it continued nonstop. I mean, just shaking the tree, it was so intense. I could feel the vibration going through my body. And I mean, through it, like an x-ray or like infrasound or whatever it was. There was just so much volume and girth coming from its voice. And I don't know if it was directed at me or toward the dogs, or it was just, in general, upset. And obviously they didn't like the dogs. I don't know what, but those dogs, didn't make a peep. And then it went silent, and I kept walking. I had to go down this like 50-foot incline, on a road. So it's a gradual, incline. And then it's like a plateau down there, like a field to my left and a few trees. But on the right, there's a lot of trees and cabins, summer cabins. And this is up in the mountains, about 8,000 foot up in the White Mountains in Arizona. So then I'm walking along, and I hear something to my left, and it only sounds about 30 feet out. I hear like, thump, thump. I hear something. I'm like, oh, just keep walking. So now I know it's tracking me or trailing me. And then soon after, I hear something on the right side, not that soon, but maybe another 50 feet. I had to go about an eighth of a mile on that flat. And then it goes up a gradual hill about 50 yards up again, or 50 feet up over like, 100 yards, maybe it goes up. I keep hearing it to my right. I get up to the main road, and I turn left, and I can still hear it to my right. I can't hear or can't see it, but I hear it behind this Blue Ridge Drive-In, and there's a light between the buildings, and then I hear it behind the post office over there, and I can never see it, but I can hear it move in the gravel, like behind these buildings. And I'm walking. I got to go about another maybe a half a mile to where we lived. I lived in a barn behind our restaurant, and my dad had a double wide trailer behind the restaurant. My sisters and mom and stepdad lived in there, and I lived in the barn. We remodeled into a big apartment for myself. So I get in there, I shut the door, I lock it, I throw about 15 shells into my 22 rifle, and I'm like, okay, what do I do? Do I call the Forest Service, the park ranger, game warden? I don't know what to do. I'm like 15 years old. I never experienced any kind of creature like this. I mean, this thing was huge. Shane, when I tell you, the sound was coming from like 35, 40 feet up in the tree. Okay, the volume was directed down from where it was, okay? In my mind.
So you think it was up in the tree watching you? Like, is that
I think that the dogs, and it was getting away from the dogs, or it was above them, and it just got tired and just said, "Roar!" And the dogs probably just shot out and ran back to the house, tails into their ass. I didn't do that. I just walked.
Okay.
But the volume of that sound, it could have been standing on the ground and being that big. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like
I'm following.
This thing could have been 30 feet tall. In other words, from the volume it was putting out, an unbelievable amount to reverberate through my body. at 30, 40 feet away from the road.
It followed you back to it kind of paced you out of the woods or wherever off that road all the way back to where you made it back to your house.
All the way down the main road. This is a highway, down the main highway. It was on the other side of the post office, on the other side of this other part. And this is a little 2-lane back then. It was just like a little back road almost between towns. It wasn't a big highway back then. It's built bigger now, but back then it was not. So I didn't get any sleep. I wasn't going to wake up my dad, a Navy guy, at 2:30 in the morning or whatever time it was, with this, he has bigger guns because he used to hunt grizzlies and other things, in other states. But I still wasn't going to wake him up. So first light, I walked back out there by myself. And it's like 6 a.m. or whatever, because I got no sleep at all, or a little bit, if any. And I go back out there. I go right over to those trees first. And I walk out into those trees about 30 feet, 35 feet out. And I'm looking, and I see this big tree, and it's probably as big around as, picture something. Let's say is a big tire, say a 33-inch tire, pretty good size round tire, that size tree. And at the bottom of that tree, halfway around the bottom, the base of it, all the pine needles are pushed away about 5 inches deep and about 6 or 7 inches wide, like out from the edge of the tree. All the pine needles are pushed away, not dug away like a dog would do at all, just like this perfect uniform, almost like a sweep of these pine needles away from the base of that pine tree.
Like something wanted to sit there or lay there or something?
No, well, years later, or trying to figure out what that was, I think it was the creature coming down the tree, with its hands, and then was reaching for the ground to see where it was, and was like sweeping its, foot around.
I got you. Yeah. Okay.
Maybe make sure there was no dog there. I don't know, but something like that, or when it was when it was going up the tree. I don't know, but I definitely think it was up in the tree, because I don't think it was 35 feet tall. No, that's not. Only the volume of the voice, the roar, sounded like that big.
So what I'm getting from this then is it might have been up in that tree and those dogs didn't know it was up there until you and the girl came walking down the road, got the dogs all riled up, and it annoyed it so much that it just wanted the dogs to shut up, and that's why it started making a noise. Is that kind of
no,
make sense?
no, because when Peggy and I walked by, the dogs weren't barking or making any noise or any ruckus.
Oh, they weren't. Okay, that's okay.
No.
Okay, I thought
when I was on my way back alone. On my way back alone, then they were raising hell. That's why I decided to cross the road. And I only got halfway across the road and like halfway past the house when the dogs went silent. Bam. And so did every other creature in the whole area. And it was like at least 15, 20 seconds before the roar started. So there was that silence.
And how did you have the nerve to not just take off running? Because how does that not? I mean, you must have nerves of steel.
When you've seen an alien ship 30 feet away, I guess you got some balls.
I guess so. But I mean, you didn't really know what it was either. So I guess to take off.
You think that's something? You got a little more coming, Shane. Trust me.
Oh, geez.
My next couple experiences are even worse or stronger.
So you make it through this. So did you? So up to that point in that area, was Bigfoot a common topic, or was that something you had never heard of, or did you at that point even think it was a Bigfoot, or did you just not have any? You didn't even think it was.
No, I had no idea really of that, what it might be really. So that day, after I looked at the trees, right, I decided to go down that hill on the same path that it might have taken on that side of the road where I first heard something to the left, as you remember. So I'm going down the hill. I don't see anything. And I get down to the field. I'm walking in the field. I see this mound of grass, probably about 25 feet in length and about 8 or 9 inches or feet wide. This big, like 1 or 2 foot deep patch of grass that a farmer had been dumping there or whatever. Okay. So And I'm looking and I see this footprint about 10 feet in. It's the right foot of this creature that stepped on this mound. And then about 8 feet or 9 feet past that are two footprints, the left and right. And you can see the shape. It's sunk down about 8 inches deep. And it's a human shaped foot, the right foot, and then both feet. I think that's what I heard to my left. It was moving through the field fast. It's sunk with 1 foot. If you sink down 8 inches, what are you going to do? I'm going to stop. I'm going to, so I land on 2 feet. That's what this thing did, I think. And that's what I heard to my left. So now I know that these are like 15.5-inch prints. They're pretty wide. Okay. They're like 7 or 8 inches wide where the toes are. And it's the right toe is farther than the little toe is. There's like, you can see, obviously nothing you can, I didn't even think about casting, but that's in grass. You can't get more of an impression than that. So I know this thing's big. That's all I know. But I already knew that. So I see two trees up in the corner of the field up above the next hill. So I go up toward those two trees. And I'm walking closer. I'm about 30, 40 feet away. And I'm like, wait a minute. These are both pine trees. What the hell? And the right tree on the side of the street area, the road side, is perfectly straight, like 60 foot up, perfectly straight pine tree. The pine tree next to it goes up about 7, 8 feet, turns to the right at a 90-degree angle, and then turns straight up at another 90-degree angle, and then turns to the left again, and then to the right again. So it's going up about 3 or 4 different times up this tree, a pine tree.
So something had bent the other pine tree, like next to another pine tree, like it had stair steps in it, like it looked like
not stair steps, but like turns, like bend, like about 5 feet, and then it would bend up, and then 5 or 6 feet up, and then it would bend to the other direction. So I look up there and I see something had been clawing or digging sap from the top of that bent tree. The other tree that didn't look like anything was been digging on it. So this one, like, okay, something's digging sap up there. So I'm 15 years old. I jump up there and I climb up there. I get up toward the very top and I'm on the last branch, Shane, that'll hold my weight. And I'm about 110 pounds then. Okay. 15-year-old kid, and this branch is probably 1.5 inches around maybe that I'm standing on. And it's the last one that I think that'll hold me. And I'm about 3 feet away from where something has been digging that sap. So it had to be standing where I was and being able to reach 3.5 feet higher than I could.
I get you. I get what you're saying. So
and the view from up there, I turned around and sat down on one of the branches, like, about 8 or 10 feet down. Nobody could see me on the roads even. And this is daytime in the morning, So at night, they could sit up there and just watch cars, watch people, they'd have a great view.
Now, do you think they made those bends in the tree, or was that just some kind of natural?
No, totally unnatural. It had to have been over decades, either the Indians before them or Bigfoot, because I've seen Indians marking major thoroughways with tree bends, like but one bend, not like 6 going up a tree. That was weird.
But if you wanted just like you said, you sat there and nobody could see you, whether it was a Native American or a Bigfoot that wanted to sit up there, and it would be perfect for either one to kind of scout out what's coming. Yeah. Wow.
Or for a hunting party, if there's 3 Bigfoot on the left side in the trees and there's 2 in the field pushing them out, and this one's, I don't know, whistling and telling them where to go, or I don't know what they communicate that way, or how they hunt, but there's, a few different possibilities that I've heard. But anyway,
so still you're up in this tree and you're still wondering what the heck is up here that can reach 2-3 feet beyond my reach and is up here hanging out.
Yeah. And what do they use the sap for? Is it for wounds? Is it for to give them better grip on the trees or to eat, hair tonic. I don't know. I don't know what. Talking Bigfoot, so who knows? Got to keep it light. All right, so let me go into my next.
I just have to say for the record, if I would have used sap for hair tonic, I might have more of it left. Because it would have stuck around a little bit longer, I think, maybe. But
if you like the movie Something About Mary, remember that?
oh gosh.
The hair gel.
Yes.
There you go. That's what I've been like. Yeah. Okay. All right. So my next experience, where those two trees are, there's a road. Used to be a dirt road, and that's what I'm referring to. There's about 5 houses on the right-hand side of that road and no houses to the left where I mentioned that field. Okay. So I was at the last house on the right visiting my friend Johnny and his wife and their dog Wolfie. Their dog is a shepherd, maybe wolf mix, who knows. But I was visiting them, decided I'm going to go out to the lake from there. So I started walking out, and their dog happened to be with me because, I'm walking, the dog's going to go because that's what they do. So she's about 12, 15 feet in front of me, and we're walking. All of a sudden, something, that same style roar starts coming up in front of me, about a quarter mile in front of me. And the dog just stops in her tracks and jerks her head back and looks at me. And I took off running toward it as fast as I can, Shane. And I'm looking up in trees. I'm pushing off of rocks like starting blocks, trying to get as much speed as I can. And I'm just running as fast as I can. I'm looking up in the trees, side to side, in front of me, anywhere I can. And, at 15 years old, I can run pretty good. And I get to the clearing of the trees where the lake is. It's about 50 yards, maybe 80 yards in front of me. And I'm out of breath. So I'm just like, okay, let me take it. All right. And I look back in the trees. I didn't see anything. I'm looking up in them. I don't see anything. So I look to the lake and I go, all right, I'm going to do an angle to the right. I'm going to go at an angle and then walk along the shore and see if I can see anything, So I head off to my right and I get out to the lake and I get about 15 feet, 20 feet away and I start walking along the edge. And I'm walking along, I get about 50 feet or so. And pretty soon I see something sticking up from the ground, but near the edge of the lake. And it's about maybe 100 feet away from me. And I'm like, well, that's weird. All right. I'm still walking along. And I'm like, what the hell is that? It's mud. And there's mud sticking up about, I don't know, about 15, 16 inches out from the level part of the ground, the mud. Okay. And it's up in the air and curling back toward the shore, this mud. And I'm like, what the hell is that? And I get over to it. I get about 10 feet away, and this mud is about almost an inch thick coming from the level pane, of the shore. And it's coming up. It's about 6 inches wide and curling at the top toward the shore. And when I get over to it, it's the front half of this creature's foot sunk down about 8 inches down below the level of the mud and pushed all that mud up from the middle of its foot because their foot bends in the middle, the mid-tarsal break. I didn't know that then, but I figured that had to have been just its toe or the front half. And it was huge, human-shaped toes, no claws, and the water just starting to seep into it. And you could see the definition of the foot, just amazing. In the mud that's that much weight had to have been, at least 1,000, maybe 1,100 pounds. I was thinking like 8 back then, but I've, since realized to push that much mud up had to have been. But this mud was, like I say, pushed up about, 15, 16 inches up and then started curling to the back toward the shore. So when it pushed down and stepped and dove in the water, I assume all that mud got pushed up and hardened, or it didn't even harden. It was just so much weight with that thick mud, it was like, instant cement. But I turned, I got this calm feeling of knowing, I knew it was Bigfoot by then. I talked to my friends and other people about witnessing, and things, but I knew. I didn't, I wasn't worried about it. I don't know. I turned and just walked off. I don't remember after I turned like a couple steps. I don't remember walking out that day, or I didn't stop at my friend Johnny's house. I don't remember that night. I don't remember bringing anyone back there. I didn't. I know that. I didn't even think about a picture. Just I knew that cool. This is what it is. All right. But if I didn't run toward it, I never would have seen that. But it was the most amazing print, or how
So do
deep it
you
was.
you think that made it just before you got there, or
No, it was in the trees, and maybe it saw me and the dog and didn't like the dog. I don't know, but it started
okay.
roaring, that same pissed off, you know, roar, just screeching, heavy guttural roar. But this time it was an eighth of a mile away or more.
And you never actually caught up with it, but by the time you got there, that's all that was left from it
Right.
having done
It
that
must
at some point.
it either heard or saw me running toward it flat out, So it said, all right, I'm booking, I'm getting out of here. So it headed to the water, thinking that's the best way to get away. It jumped in the water, but as it did, its last step. And like I said, they can like leap almost, maybe it thought it could make it farther, but it had to take one more step, and it, hit. And that's how much, weight, just, 8 or 9 inches deep. And this thing was like 7, 8 inches wide at the toes, and like 5 or 6 inches wide at the mid tarsal part, and then shoved all that mud above ground. It was amazing, print. And
Gosh,
if I knew now what I know, I would go back and print and take pictures, and but
well, yeah,
I didn't have to, because I knew what it was then.
wow. So then what do you just do you talk? I mean,
So
do
then
you talk to your friends some more and say, hey, look, you're never going to believe this, but I saw
exactly.
a print. Well, so how did that go?
Well, I didn't tell him about that right away. I started, asking more questions about the history, and I started talking about things like that. Like Indians had told stories about them like riding on horseback down a mountain, and Bigfoot would be like 50 or 100 yards to its side, just tracking right along with them, just pacing right with them, not right on them. So it wouldn't scare the horses, but it would just be going down the hill, pacing them out. And then I heard one from Grandma Penrod that was up there, one of the first families that, the Fish family and Lazan family. Well, Penrods were up on the mountain, and Grandma Penrod apparently was down by the lake. She was hearing a cow, she thought, and she was like 6 or 7 years old, maybe 7 or 8, I guess. I don't remember the details right now, but she kept hearing what she thought was a cow, and she got down by the lake and she heard it again and looks across the lake, and it's a Bigfoot, like swaying back and forth to its, left side, right side, just swaying back and forth with its arms kind of stretched out toward the lake and moaning. She said the sorrow in its voice was deep. And this is a secondhand, you know, recreation that someone told me, but I could hear the emotion they were telling me, that this creature was just more, just this sorrow in its voice that she was describing. And she was, not panicked, but kind of almost mesmerized. And then she just like turned and ran home, or ran back. And then I heard a couple other stories, but then I started looking a little more into it now that I know that they're around. And but I used to camp right in that same spot area, and
So I mean, it seems like from an early age, and maybe it was because you had this UFO experience, but that you were more fascinated by what this could be than scared, obviously. And
yeah, yeah,
especially if you're still 15, 16 years old and going camping there, and But I
yeah,
mean, let's be honest. Growing up in the '70s is a little bit different than growing up than than being a kid today. You kind of
right. And
were.
I was
We were
going out
all,
camping with one of my friends.
yeah.
I mean, I've been camping with my parents, years earlier, but this I was just going out with my friend, take his old Chevy Nova through the woods, right? And we'd
Oh
park
God.
it, and then we'd build a fire, we'd have a tent, his dog, that's roughing it out there. There's
Yeah.
spiders the size of a hand up
Yeah.
there.
Now kids that age roughing it as if the Wi-Fi doesn't connect.
Yeah, at
No,
the campground. Yeah.
nobody's taking their Nova through the woods Kids these days
Yeah.
don't even know what a nova is. Are you kidding me? so how long were you out there then? Before, I mean, how do you end up in Pennsylvania?
Well, let me tell you one more experience there that was pretty intense. I was with Peggy again. We were in those same woods,
Okay,
and
so
we're walking.
let's just get this out now. Peggy was not really your friend's girlfriend. This was
No,
your.
she was. No, she was. I had my own girlfriend. It's just she lived in that area, and that was just kind of normal to hang out. So
Okay, fine. Okay, fine. I'll buy it. I'll buy it.
we left the lake area, and she was going to be heading home. So I said, "Hey, I'm going to check out the other side of the creek because I'd never been on the other side of this creek that fed the lake." Okay, so she says, "Okay, just you're going to go look for Bigfoot, aren't you?" And I go, "Yeah." And she goes, "You got to be careful." And I said, "All right," And she told me two things that kind of had me a little worried, a little bit. But she told me when she was about, I don't know, 10 or 12 years old, her and her parents came home with their station wagon or whatever it was. And as they're coming up the dirt road and getting ready to turn into their driveway, they turn the corner into their driveway, and there's a Bigfoot leaning leaning with its left arm on their carport, on the top of their carport. She said its arm was like level with the top of the carport.
Good grief.
Yeah. Most carports are 7 to 8 feet up minimum.
I
And
was gonna
its
say it's gonna be
arm
huge.
was like its elbow was like on the awning, on the carport. And they got scared and didn't go. And Bigfoot turned and just walked off. Wasn't affected really, she said. So then she told me the second thing. Now, Glenn, this may sound crazy, but her and two other friends were hiking over by this, and I would say it's not a sewer area, but between the sewer and this natural spring area, this natural spring is what actually feeds this creek that I'm talking about. Okay. Between those two, they found a horse with its head ripped off. Now, she said it wasn't cut off. It wasn't like severed in any way. It was ripped off.
Holy moly!
And like
Do you have horses? Because I have horses, and I can't even
that takes a lot of
imagine.
power, a
Can't
lot
even
of power.
imagine that.
So, yeah. And I've heard
Wow.
that they don't like horses and dogs for some reason. Maybe because they're like hypersensitive to the alarm system of Bigfoot, or I don't know. I've heard that they've ripped, hindquarters off of horses. These are investigations that I haven't done those, but that's things that I've heard. But this one, and I believed her because she was like terrified in her eyes when she's even knew that I was going to go over there and that this is something that she and her friends found. So I said, well, I got to go. I got to check it out. So she said, okay. So she went her way and I went down the creek and I got to look for a place to cross the creek. So I'm walking along and I hope I don't have to go all the way to the road, but I see this little levee like going across and it's about 1.5 feet wide, goes across the creek. And the creek's about 25 feet wide right there. So I go across the creek and I turn right and I'm going back down the creek toward the river or toward the lake. And I get about 100, maybe 150 yards at the most. And I noticed to my left, about 25, 30 feet up, that there's fresh breaks on the barbed wire stick, a stick that's, holding the barbed wire. So I'm like, fresh breaks means something broke them. You can tell the difference between a stick that's been there a long time and broken or fresh breaks. So I can see the fresh breaks. So I walk up there. And as I get closer, I notice this huge clump of blonde hair. And it's bigger around than any of my fingers and about 5 inches, 5.5 inches long. And I'm just staring at it. I'm about 3 feet away and I'm kind of getting a little closer, kind of looking at it. And then every hair on my neck just stands up on end. My whole body just got this eerie feeling like death or something's watching you. And I don't know why, but I spun around a 360 and dropped to my fingertips in like a Spider-Man kind of pose. And I'm about 3 inches of range from the ground. And I'm looking side to side up in the trees, you know, from the direction past the hair. And I just slowly creep back on my fingertips because I think it's coming from that direction in front of me, but I can't see it. And I slowly back up a few more feet and I slowly get up and I turn and walk out. And I walk across that water, that little levee thing, and I'm thinking it's like deep on my left side, And if something just grabbed me and I'd be gone, nobody would ever see me again. I'm thinking that, but I get across the water and I walk on back home and it's getting dusk then by that time. So I call my buddy and I said, hey, you got to come out here, meet me here and I'll meet you. Yeah, you got to come see this. Right. So first thing in the morning, he's out there like 7 a.m. in the morning. We go out there, walk across that little levee thing, turn right, head up down that way, get to the fence. We look up to where the brakes are. I walk over there and the hair is gone. I mean, it's gone. And Shane, I mean, I'm like doing almost the same thing I was doing, except I'm not looking at the hair this time. I'm looking on the ground this time because I'm looking for any hair or any evidence that I didn't just see this because I know what I felt. I know what I saw. I saw this big, huge clump of hair. And to be that big of a clump anyway had to have been pretty painful or, that's weird. That much hair clumped together on a piece on the barbed wire in the first place. And it had to have hit it pretty hard. Like maybe it was watching us from the other side of the creek. And then when she left and I started down there and then I came up that way, probably surprised it and it ran and cut the barbed wire, But so I'm looking at the hair, Shane, right? Or for the hair, really. And my friend walks over about, I don't know, 10 or 15 feet, away toward the creek a little bit, right? And he tips up this big rock. And this rock was like 35, 40 pounds. It looked kind of like not a volcano, but a pyramid kind of rounded, just shaped rock, okay? And he tips it up. I have no idea why, but there's barbed wire twisted up underneath the rock.
Okay. Like somebody ripped it off and
hit it. Hit it underneath this rock. Now, I mean, I'm sorry, but I've done fences in Colorado and in California up on, cattle ranching. You don't care. You just throw it, especially when the creek is right there and the creek's 30 feet deep. You just toss it in the creek. It's that close. A human wouldn't do that. No other animal that I know of would do that. Could a bear lift up a rock and throw barbed wire under it? No. A deer, a wolf, a coyote? No.
The Jeep Wrangler 4xE. It's electrified. So you can boogie woogie woogie up a mountain, over creeks, or boogie woogie woogie through a desert where you get bit by a pit viper. So you boogie woogie woogie back to camp and ask your friends if they'll suck the snake venom out. When they say no, you boogie woogie woogie to the nearest hospital for a dose of anti-venom and boogie woogie woogie your way to a full recovery. The electrified Jeep Wrangler 4xE. Learn more at Jeep.com. Jeep is a registered trademark of FCA US LLC.
Download Upside and start getting cash back wherever you roll. It's like having your own hype man. Get an average of 17% cash back at restaurants.
Oh, it's dinner time.
Average of 13% on groceries.
Get those groceries.
10 cents per gallon average cash back on gas.
It's go time.
Plus, cash back at participating convenience stores too.
Stacks on stacks.
Users can earn hundreds of dollars a year, 3 times more than other apps.
Upside, show me that money.
All right, we get it.
Get it.
It's easy. Just sign up for the free Upside app and start getting cash back for doing you. Download the free Upside app and use promo code DOYOU10 for an extra $10 cash back on your first purchase of $10 or more. That's promo code DOYOU10 for an extra $10 on the free Upside app. Get cash back for doing you with the free app from Upside.
Now, a bear could do that, but why would a bear do that? Why would a bear do that? You know what I'm saying?
But how? he's got to drag the barbed wire with his teeth because, and then tip up the rock, a 35-pound rock on its edge. And it's, like I say, a concave kind of flat on the bottom, but concave kind of weird shape on the top, like a pyramid kind of thing. Tip it up and then put some barbed wire underneath it and then hide it.
Now, now do you think is that the piece of barbed wire that had the hair on it or not?
No, it wasn't.
Okay.
It may, because that barbed wire was still strung across still.
Okay.
The wood, the branch that was holding it, that had the 3 breaks in it, was still attached to that barbed wire still. That's how I noticed the 3 breaks. So 3 strands, it was broken in 3 spots on the fence.
So what was what do you suppose the purpose of that was?
To hide any blood or hair or whatever, it got caught up in the barbed wire and was pissed and just, twisted it up and shoved it under a rock. I think that's the only thing I could figure.
That's just crazy. Yeah. I mean, it's just odd because you're right. It's not anything that it's only
I don't have
something.
any proof. I just know what I saw, and that barbed wire is still there, as far as I know. I didn't take it. We just pushed rock back down.
Well, I mean, it either was a human or a Bigfoot that did it. I mean, there's not really much else that is going to do that. So but it doesn't make sense for anybody to do it, whether you're human or a Bigfoot, for sure, for real. I mean, it doesn't make a lot of sense
unless they're taught to hide any evidence that they've came across, that they bled, that they cut themselves with. If they were taught that from an early age, and that's how their upbringing, that's how they stay hidden. And like I say, that creature that I ran after, there's no doubt that it dove into that lake, and that creek that I was talking about is at least 1/8 of a mile away. That's a hell of a swing. That's a good swim underwater, right?
I couldn't do it.
No. So either this thing has got really, really big lungs, which we know it does, with the strength and the ability that they have, I think it could swim pretty damn fast. But I have another theory too, that I think they go in the water and come up underground and build their caverns underground just so they can stay hidden. And that's how they bury their dead and how they stay hidden from humans and other creatures.
That's as good a theory as any,
Yeah, I mean, I may be wrong, but so far it hasn't proven me wrong. No one's proven me wrong, but no one's proven me right either. So you gotta think outside the box with these creatures, I believe. So
that becomes more and more apparent that you do have to think a little outside of the box, for sure, because they're not. They're not normal. I mean, it's not anything that we consider normal. So why would you think normal things when you're trying to figure out, why and where and what and how?
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Normal reasoning isn't getting much evidence.
No,
that's the thing.
No.
Out of the Patterson Gilman, 1967 to now. I mean, come on, that's a lot of years that I would have thought. I mean, when I remember when the first dial-up AOL first came out, in the modem. Do you remember that?
Well, of course, of course.
Yeah. So I looked up Bigfoot back then, right? And there was like 200 and some thousand things about Bigfoot on the internet then. Okay. Now, how many of those, I thought that number was like outrageous. I'm like, oh my God, that's so huge, and then now there's these, thousands of podcasts about, not just Bigfoot, but other cryptids and other ideas. But how many things have been taken off the internet? And, there's just a lot of old newspaper, things that are, Hairy Man and, just repetition about
I just got sent a newspaper clipping, and unfortunately, it's only the first page or the first part of it, but it was, and I'm, this is going to make for compelling podcasting as I look it up here in my email. But this goes right along with what you're saying is like what Josh Snyder is. He sent me a couple pretty cool articles in the last couple months. But this one's from 1895 in Remington, Indiana. And here's the headlines. Fearsome beast sighted a third time. So what the heck is that? In Indiana.
Yeah, bingo.
And I don't know where Remington, Indiana is, but this is,
Doesn't matter. They're everywhere.
Yeah, this is a fantastic. This lady is describing this down at the river, and it was an early morning, and this is what's really crazy. So it said everything, like she's down at the river at 4:00 in the morning washing she's washing jars, which must have been something you did in the 1890s. And it says here, the songbirds were happy. So I went to the bank, curves back north with my pant legs rolled up. That's pretty bare feet in the water. I was rinsing my glassware when I noticed the birds had grown silent. As I looked up, I saw it standing on its hinds in the opposite side of the creek. As she began to describe it, Mrs. Cornwell grew visibly upset. It was wolf-like, but giant in size, far taller than me, standing as it was, ruddy colored fur, but a face like a wild boar. The description well matched the previous two accounts, which locals coining the beast the rem wolf. And then it only had this, and then the rest of the article would appear somewhere else.
Page paragraphs, yeah.
And so there, I couldn't read it. I couldn't read it anymore, and I don't, I have to do some research and try to find that newspaper. But that's the same stuff that you hear now, where like the forest goes silent. Like how would they know in 1895 to notice that the songbirds quit singing? And then you're
notice.
And then you're yeah.
I've noticed it a dozen times, probably.
Yeah,
or more.
So
it's eerie. It's really eerie, dude.
So you have that, and you have those reports clear back then, and that's the third report of that, according to that newspaper article. And and it's the same stuff 120 years later. It's the same exact stuff. So okay, so how do you end up in Pennsylvania, and how do you get into so I'm assuming then from that point in your life, now you know that there's something out there, you're convinced that Bigfoot exists. Do you keep chasing after it and trying to find more evidence?
Actually, no, I took a break. I took like a few years. I moved back to Southern California, and I, didn't think about it. Did a lot of four-wheeling, and doing that. But then I ended up after we lived in Oregon for a while, I moved to Connecticut, met a girl there, got married, and then she was from Pennsylvania, moved back to Pennsylvania with her eventually, and raised my two boys. And so when they got to that age, about 10 and 14, I started going out Bigfooting again. I started getting interested in it again. And wow, did I have some experiences. It took, it's like, the first one I had, I was going out to go camping with my brother, and he was in the middle part of the state, and I was going to meet him at a campground area. So I was about a half hour ahead of him, coming from a different direction. So I decided to, just look for a place to look around. I really wasn't thinking about Bigfoot that much, but a little bit, and I see this little dirt trail kind of close to the freeway, but not. So I pulled down there with my little Toyota RAV4, and I see this like cul-de-sac, like real muddy, dirty, old cul-de-sac kind of thing. And I said, well, okay. And I look to my right, and I see this, kind of a muddy rut, like something had driven down there before. And I'm like, well, I go down, go that way, just check it out. It's only 50 feet away. Well, it could, doesn't hurt. So I pull down there, and it's like a little trail. It's only like, 2-lane, nothing. It's only about 100 yards deep at the most from the very beginning. So I go down there, and I pass this one tree, and I look to my left, and there's a tree that had fallen down, and it was part of a 4-pronged tree. Okay. Like 4 big, like not a triad tree, a 4-pronged tree. And one of the big quarters of it fell down. It was still attached. So it was like 3 foot off the ground at the trunk part, and then sloping down to the side. Well, next to it on that one side, there was like 30 or 40 branches weaved in on that side of the tree. A few on the other side, but not many. I'm like, okay, this is something. Then I want to check this out. So I hop out and I start walking over there, and there's this huge patch of hair, like something had been shedding hair or killing something, but there's no hides, there's no bones, there's no antlers, there's no skulls, there's no evidence of guts, but there's this hair all over the ground, right near where this like structure kind of thing was by these branches. And there's a huge plop of poop there. And then another smaller plop that was the smaller plop was as big as one of the big maple leaves that were there, and they were about the size of my hand. Okay. That small plop was about 1.5 inches thick. The big plop was 3 times that size and about 2 inches thick. Now, there's no cows in this area, okay, for one. This was not a cow pie. I've seen hundreds of cows, some cow pies, not a cow pie. This was like, had a lot of fiber in it, some gelatinous stuff in it, some, weird looking seeds in it. This is in the laurels. You ever heard of mountain laurels? Or I don't know if they have them in the area you're at.
I've heard that phrase, but yeah, they don't.
Okay. Well, the mountain laurels in this area are like grandfathered, I'd say, because they're like 15 to 20 feet tall. They're huge. And the leaves on them, they're like a rhododendron, only like 3 times the size, the leaves.
Okay.
They stay green all winter long. So they're about 3 to 4 inches wide and about 6 inches long, these leaves. And they're about 1/4 inch thick. Even when I've driven through them with 1/2 inch ice on these leaves, they're still green and vibrant, all year long. Okay. So that's the area. But I did do some research on the mountain laurels, and deer eat them, but it's hot to their tongue, they say, but they get inebriated. They
Really?
get drunk from eating those leaves.
Okay, that's interesting. That's pretty interesting. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So maybe, Bigfoot would be doing that too, I think. Lay around, you got camouflage, you got bedding, you got leaves you can eat any time of year, and they get you drunk too. That's a pretty good vacation. So I went back and I met my brother, and we came back there, and he wouldn't hike down into the laurels with me because like, no, I'm not. I don't want to get killed. I'm just no thanks. And he's a 7th degree ninjutsu black belt, so he wasn't scared of anything. He just doesn't want to go down in the woods, not knowing. So we go back to camp. So after the camping trip, I bring another friend of mine out there, an investigator, because I've met a couple, in the area. And we start looking around, and we find a few different things, a couple little structures, but we've investigated there at night. And we've heard something coming pretty close to us, but we can't see it. Don't know what it is. And I tell people, if you want to see Bigfoot or you want to find evidence, go during the day, go during the morning or daylight. If you want to have an experience that'll definitely happen, go at night, because they're more active at night and they have the advantage. They'll come a lot closer to you at night than they will during the day. And we've gotten them on thermal, and that's having a good experience, but not having a good sighting or finding good evidence. So I brought in a couple people back to that area a few times. This one last particular time, not the last, but most traumatic experience we had there was Stephanie, her boyfriend, AJ, and myself went down there. And we decided to go hiking way down into the laurels. And these are so thick, you have to look at the trees to get your bearing as you're going, because you can get lost. It's like a maze. These things are so thick. So we hiked for about 2 hours, got way down there by the creek. And I decided, all right, guys, why don't we let this area cool down? Let's hike out of here. We'll drive somewhere else for a little while, and then we'll come back. So they all agreed. So we hiked back up. It took about 40 minutes to hike back up. We drove to another area where more public hiking is. So we hiked down there, and we got down to that same creek. Okay. but it's in the more public area where they have a waterfall down there and other structures like bridges and things for people to walk on. But we were in the more untrailed area, going up and down these whoop-de-doops. Like, oh, we got down to this little island that we found out on the creek. We go out on this island and we find this small human-shaped footprint, probably a size 6 or 8 of a kid, but it's sunk down almost an inch deep, and that's really deep. We stepped next to it and it wouldn't even go down like an eighth of an inch. And I weigh about 185, 190 pounds. So barely even sunk in. So whatever made that footprint had to have weighed around 400, 450 pounds at that size foot, or it was carrying something really heavy to make that deep of an impression. Okay. So we kept going on the creek on that little island, right? And then I don't know, I wasn't leading, but all of a sudden we came back to that exact same footprint going the exact same direction. Now, Shane, all 4 of us were like in shock. Like, wait, how could we get back here coming this same direction? We didn't go back around, that was really strange. So I said, all right, guys, follow me. We're going back out. We're going back up this way. And everybody followed me back out and up. We got back to the main trail, hiked back up to my truck, Toyota RAV4. We drove back over to the other area, and it's almost dark now, and I decided to back in because it's muddy up there. So I back into that spot, and I get pretty close to where that tree had fallen and right up to it. And we're just bullshitting and talking. And I said, Stephanie, why don't you say a few things, just, put its mind to ease. I don't know what to say. And I said, well, just say anything. Just talk, tell them you're here to be friendly. Just want to be, just say anything. So she started talking and doing, a little bit. And I didn't have a flashlight at the time. So somebody else had the flashlights. And I walked out toward my right into the pathway to the right is kind of where the water goes down. And the other side is where the weave through the maze is. So I was out that way and they're shining the light on me. And it's like this huge silhouette of like a Bigfoot in front of me. It looks like with my silhouette, the shadows, right? And I'm kind of laughing like, oh, and I'm just bullshit. I'm talking like I told Stephanie to do, just trying to put the Bigfoot to ease if they are out there listening. So I come back over to the Toyota RAV4 and I'm talking and I decided to replicate a yell like I heard in Arizona. So I turn around and I didn't tell anybody. And AJ got in the front seat, the passenger side of the RAV4, but the driver's window was down. So I didn't want to yell right there, right in his ear, So I walked to the back of the SUV and I aimed toward the back of the SUV out into the woods. And I'll do a quick yell, but I only did it for about a half a second. That's all I did. And I just real loud. And then something started stomping up at me. And this is like the heaviest. I've never heard anything stomp like this. It was just like boom, 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 boom. And it's breaking, snapping branches coming up at me. Everybody just starts scrambling. This boyfriend jumps in behind my seat and slams the door. So Stephanie has to run around the front of the SUV. I jump in, start the truck, and there's like, go, go, go. Stephanie gets in and we just take off. And they're like, don't stop. This thing could just knock the truck over. Go, go, go. They're screaming, and I don't want anyone to get hurt, and we're going. I'm like, I want to go back. And they, no, I'm not going back tonight. No way. Even when we're 10 miles away, I still wanted to go back, but nobody wanted to go back. And I don't want anyone to get hurt either. So AG and I go back the next morning and we're looking around and we see these branches that are snapped and they're like 2.5 inches around. Just snapped off, tossed up into the laurels. We can't see any footprints, but man, the power that this thing just came right up at us, right up at me. I was the closest one to it, but AJ felt it in the passenger seat. He could feel the impressions. It was almost like that Jurassic Park movie where you see it in the water, boom, boom,
Oh, yeah.
boom. I mean, this was it was probably the, loudest thing I've ever heard stomping ever.
So you seem to have had some experiences with it where now it just seemed like it's trying to get you out of wherever you're at. Like, you know what I'm saying? It not like it was like going to attack you, but it was almost like it's like, hey, look, get out of here. I don't want you around here.
Yeah, we think that was a bluff rush. What we call is like something comes up at you, but it's going to stop. But, and thank God it did. Because it could have just knocked the back of that SUV and just, who knows what we would be like. But I don't know what I said when I did that yell.
Yeah, well, that's we've
Okay.
talked about that before. Is when you're doing the quote unquote Ohio howl or any sort of that, like whistling or even tree knocks, you don't know what you're saying. You don't know if you're like issuing a challenge or what.
Right. And I also think that, maybe it was thinking that we were being attacked and it was coming up to defend us.
Oh, okay. I got you. Yeah.
From another Bigfoot or, I don't know, and like I say, I've forgiven him for any fright or scare that I got from that, because that was pretty, intense, put it that way. And even going back, I've been back numerous times, daytime, nighttime. I've never had a bad feeling. I've always had, even, the next day, I didn't have any, qualms about going back, but, that's why I wanted to go see, And
well, it's I mean, I think it goes all the way back to the aliens. You're a brave guy to keep wanting to go back and I guess face whatever it is. So have you, other than catching it on thermal, have you ever actually had a a real like visual yourself?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me tell you well, you remember I was talking about Johnny. Well, Johnny and his Nova, there was 4 of us in his car. And this is at night on one of the lookout tower roads up in the mountains. And we're cruising along, and these back roads are cinders, cinder roads from lava years ago. But we're driving along, and he has to go to the bathroom. So he's driving. I'm in the back seat on the passenger side. Okay, I'm in the back seat on that side. So he stops, grabs the toilet paper, heads out. He's out in the woods. Maybe 2 minutes later, we start hearing like snapping branches and, little noise. And then Johnny yells, "Start the car! Start the fucking car!" So I jump over the seat. I knock it out of gear because it was, a 3 in the tree that was moved to the floor. So I take it out of gear and I start the car from the back seat, reaching over. He jumps in, takes off. "There's something coming. There's something big out there coming." So we take off. We're on the cinder road. We're going 35, almost 40 miles an hour, just, hauling ass and gaining. I look back over my left shoulder, and there's something loping. It's the only way I could describe it. Not running, not jogging, like loping, kind of just like an easy, nonchalant kind of, the arms kind of going up and down, not, nothing definite that I can see, but I know what I'm seeing. And to keep up with the car going 35, 40, and we're pulling away, and it's keeping it right up with us. It's not even straining from what I saw. It was just like I say, loping behind us. And that was my really only visual, other than, knowing how close they have been before.
Well, let me ask you this, because, gosh, we've been talking for a long time. Holy smokes.
Okay. Yep.
Let me ask you this then. So like through, getting stories and stuff, and especially in Pennsylvania there, and going out and kind of like following up on other people's stories, what's the one experience you've heard that somebody else had that really you really wish you'd been there to experience that too? Like, which is one that really hit you?
Oh, okay. I mean, AJ's had a few good ones that he's told me, but I mean, nothing's as intense as what I've lived through. I mean, some of the even when I went back to that spot where I found the hair, okay, in the barbed wire fence, something I didn't mention then is from where that break was, that stick and that break, okay, probably about 6 or 7 feet from that, it was attached to a huge tree. I mean, this tree was probably about 8 foot around, okay? I mean, some of the trees up there are big. And I didn't look up into that tree for Bigfoot. I looked in front of me more so, and side to side, when I was crawling backwards on that spider kind of mode. So It could have been right above me, and I didn't know. And I'm kind of glad I didn't look up. And I think by what I did, spinning around and dropping to the ground, this thing was probably like, it stopped its like trance that it was trying to do on me. I don't know, or whatever it's trying to do. And it was just like, whoa, what is he doing? And it was kind of just watching me, I think. And that's when I was able to back up and slowly walk out. And then it
You,
got
know,
the
it just
hair.
it just dawned on me. You did to it what it typically does to people that see it. Like
Yeah.
it did, like when people witness that
It
same
drops me
kind of
down. Yeah.
they
Mhm.
would it like freaks them out. Like, wait a second, what am I seeing? This doesn't make any sense. so you,
Yeah.
so you essentially did the old switcheroo on it if it was watching like
Yeah, because I mean, I've never had that intense feeling of the back, every hair in my body, but mainly the back of my neck, and that's a primal instinct of danger. There's no doubt what that is. So I've never had that strong of a feeling other than that particular time. Even when this thing was stomping up at me, it didn't make any noise. It didn't verbalize. But from 50, 40, 30, 20, it was coming right up at me, right up at us. you know Everybody knew. I mean, this was like a semi truck with legs. Felt like, bam, 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 gaining speed and breaking off more and more branches. And I mean, these laurels aren't little toys. These are, like I said, grandfathered in laurels with huge 20-foot, branches. And it was just snapping them off like toothpicks.
well I wonder and we mentioned this a couple times going back to that experience that you had as a kid. And it does seem to me that people who have one sort of paranormal experience seem to be opened up to having a bunch of other experiences. Because I mean, let's face it, the average
Yeah.
person's going to say, oh man, every time he walks out in the woods he's having an experience. And because I mean, you've had quite a few experiences, but I think it's
Yeah. I
also
mean,
because you're open to the experience, and you're putting yourself out there where this stuff is going to happen for sure. If it's if we're all going to believe that it happens, if this stuff is real, it's but I do think that the fact that you had that and like third eye opening experience as a kid, seeing what you're describing as a spaceship, probably opened you up to a lifetime of all kinds of this stuff. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that to me does make sense when people. I mean, the one guy that's on the judge that's on the show with me quite a bit, it's the same thing. He had paranormal experiences with ghosts growing up as a kid, and then he's been open to all kinds of crazy stuff, and we call him the judge because he's a real judge. So he's, it's not like he's,
it doesn't matter what. That's all
that's
walks of
right.
life of
That's
these things.
that's right.
But not everybody wants to say anything because
That's right. That's
they
right.
think it's taboo. They think people will mock them. They don't understand. But now it's so mainstream. It's
Well,
people. It's time to come out and talk about it.
yeah.
It's simple. I don't.
That,
No, I'm not. I'm not 14 years old anymore. I'm 60, so 62. So it's easy to talk about because I don't give a shit if someone doesn't
yeah.
believe me or not. This is the way it happened.
That was his stance when we decided to start the podcast. Was like, you know what? I now I know what I've been experiencing, and I want to share it. And even though I got to get elected every 6 years, I don't care. I got to give people permission of all walks of life to come out and share this stuff, because I just got to do it and prove that if I'm brave. And he doesn't like to say if I'm brave enough, but he's like, if I'm willing to put my reputation on the line, because we live in the same town we grew up in, and
Yeah.
and so
It doesn't matter. Yeah.
if they're going to call you crazy, these are the people that are going to call us crazy.
But they've heard it for 25 years or
That's
30
right.
years. You know, it's
They
not.
and they don't. They're just like, okay, hey. So yeah, and we got to have people come and share their experiences, or else we're never going to figure out what's going on for sure. So,
Yeah.
but so tell everybody, because I know we have a ton of listeners in Pennsylvania and Ohio. Tell them how they can find you if there's a report or something that they want to talk to somebody or report to have them go out and investigate it. Tell them how they can find you and get a hold of you and maybe get some help.
Sure. I mean, the Pennsylvania Bigfoot Project, right on Facebook, that's our main structures. We do have separate emails and texts and all that, but the main way to do it is through them. And then every county, well, not every county, but we have 90% of the counties in Pennsylvania covered by a lead chapter. And then that chapter has their group members that they do their investigations with. And then, like I say, we have the regional ones, which is what my level is, and AJ and Bob is the whole eastern part of the United States, and Bill Rigby is the western part of the state, along with maybe Mary Fabian, but she's kind of semi-retiring now, so that she doesn't have to do quite as much of that part. She'll do more analytical and response, and still do the bigger events. She's came out here to eastern to west. Northeast Pennsylvania and did her seminars basically of her experiences out here also. So it's great. And we do summer campouts in that. But if you contact that, I'm the lead chapter of Lackawanna County, and there's 7 other counties around me that I investigate recently. The other night I dropped off my ex-wife and stepdaughter to go to a concert in Penn's Peak. So I drove probably 7-8 miles away and found a great area, and then researched for about an hour. Then I went to that Laurel area that I was talking about, but about 2 miles away from there to another private area that I go to, and I actually put up a video of that, a quick reel actually. So Glen Bourassa, you can look me up on that way on Facebook for my content or reels or whatever. But I post a lot about Bigfoot, but if you need a sighting or a report, go to the Pennsylvania Bigfoot Project, click on reports, or contact Glen Bourassa or Bob. What's his last name? Blank. But I'll put it in there. But Bill Rigby, any of us can take down the reports and then put the lead chapter for that area to follow up more and go out with you if you need, or help you with the contact. We are a no-kill group. We don't believe in any kind of damage to the creatures or to their environment. We're very careful. We keep everything anonymous. We have a map under our files. You go into the files, there's a map there for all the sightings in Pennsylvania. Now you have to click into the bottom portion of that map to get all the different years from 18 something to 1905, to 1920, 1940, 1960, 1980. There's different color flags for different times. So all of Pennsylvania, we've got sightings, 700 sightings or whatever there are tagged that we've had experiences or reports from.
I was going to ask that. I was going to ask that. That's a lot. That's a lot of sightings for something that you'd ask people and they'd say, "Oh, it doesn't exist." You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, that's just our group.
Yeah.
The BFRO has, their own, reportings from all over the country. And then there's 7 or 8 other ones that are regional in Oklahoma and Ohio. I flew out to Oklahoma for about a week and a half for a research out there with Mary Fabian and her sister. They drove out from Pittsburgh area. But I flew out and spent the time on boots on the ground. I found some interesting stuff. I found a petrified toe print in a rock, which is, that was bizarre.
Wow.
It wasn't like huge, but it was toe prints in a rock. I didn't take it, but I took a little video. I took many pictures of it, and I said, I'm going to leave this there. That's interesting.
Wow. Yeah. But but unless you get out there and do like you said, the boots on the ground, you don't find that sort of stuff,
No,
Yeah.
no. And that's a lot of it. People say, oh, people never find it. Well, I found some bones that I could not describe or couldn't find, but I think that it did belong to a large canine, actually. After more research and finding out with the heel bones or the looks totally different than anything I had ever seen. What definitely wasn't a deer. So I think, we're narrowing it down, but you have to make
Yeah.
sure,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
And you
exactly.
get out there, you're never going to see them, and then they're just going to decompose, or animals will drag them off.
Yeah, that's what happens. That's what happens out in the country in the woods and stuff like that. People sitting on their couch, they don't really understand that. Yeah, sure, Bigfoot most likely isn't going to walk up into your backyard and knock on the back window.
No,
You gotta get out there and look. Now they do. I've heard I've heard a lot of those
tapping,
cases, but
smacking the windows. Yeah, but on this particular skull there was no skull or front appendages to the bones that I found. Just the legs and the torso, rib cage, and then it ended. Within a 35-40 foot radius, we circled a few times. There's some dried leaves, it's hard to see, but I might take a leaf blower out there and check it out.
Yeah. Well, it's people like you guys that are out there doing the investigation that I think will certainly get us to an answer at some point. So I above all, I'm with all the other people that are Bigfoot enthusiasts. We appreciate you guys that are out there doing the real work. So
you bet.
Keep it up. Keep it up.
Yeah, and if I get something more credible soon, I will call you up.
Listen. I'd love to hear about it and see any kind of evidence that you have too. So, but I'll tell you what, Glenn, I appreciate you spending some time with me and sharing your experiences. I know our listeners are gonna be fascinated by some of these events that you had, and like I said, I think the UFO stuff that was just the catalyst that got everything going for you.
And it could have been.
I hope they are not coming back to find you to put something else in you because you keep taking like, we got to punish that guy. He keeps messing with our stuff. That's what.
Yeah, who knows? Well, that'll be a good experience, I think. But
right.
And like I say, and anybody along the New Jersey, Pennsylvania border that might have a sightings along those rivers, the Delaware or anything, give us a call or text us, message us on Facebook, because it's important to get time is an essence. If it's now or today or tomorrow, the quicker we get there, the quicker we can cast things or get the evidence and research the area. But we do it respectfully. So we don't go in, with guns and everything blazing or nothing. I don't bring a gun. I don't. I bring some bear spray just for other animals, but I wouldn't use it on Bigfoot. It wouldn't do anything.
No, just make it mad.
Yeah.
It's like
I believe
we say it's like that scene from Blazing Saddles where Cleavon Little grabs the gun and Gene Wilder goes, "What are you doing?" He goes, "Well, I'm going to go talk to Mongo." "Oh, no. You're just going to make him mad. You're just going to make you mad.
Yeah.
Don't take the gun. You're just going to make him mad."
if I saw Bigfoot, and I'm probably one of the few, but I would sit down and stay calm, maybe bow my head and respectively not look him in the eyes, right? Try and wait for interaction.
That's an interesting approach, and you're probably
try and communicate.
You're probably one of the few I've ever heard say that that's what they would do, for sure. So
yeah, in the moment it may be different, but that's my goal, to just communicate with them on a whole nother level and help in any way I can, really, for their well-being and families and everything else. Mm-hmm.
Well, I hope you get a chance to try that for sure.
And let people know that there's hundreds of thousands of them. There's not just one in Northern California or Washington State. You know,
Yeah, I don't think that's the case at all. I don't think that's the case.
some people are like, really, in this area? Like, yeah, there's actually like 1,400 sightings in Pennsylvania under one, reporting area. Then there's, Ohio. There's so many others. If you look at these maps in the whole country, the northeast part of the country is covered.
Yeah.
And then the south too, but then the north, west is also, California and New Mexico, Arizona, Colorado is big for Bigfoot. There's lots of things there too. I lived in Durango for a year, and I lived on one of the last streets in the town. But I didn't have, that was a different phase. That was before I moved here. 1 year before.
Well, Glenn, like I said, I appreciate you coming and hanging out and sharing your experiences, and I hope that I hope out of this some people get a hold of you guys and give you some new investigations to get out and check out.
Definitely.
So all right, well, we'll keep in touch, and thanks again.
And best of, like I say, hope your friend gets better and speedy recovery.
All right, thanks.
All right, talk to you later.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of the From the Shadows podcast. Until next time, never shy away from the darkness or what may be lurking in the shadows. We are out.
God only knows.